Hey, we're back live at the passing show. I'm going to swing the camera around and we're going to go for a little walk and talk around DC. I don't know where we're going to end up, but I could go any of several different directions. And let's see where we end up going. So here we go. Nobody's joined yet, but soon enough they will, I expect. One thing I've got here is a butterfly. And it's about 11:33 in the morning on the East Coast of Washington, D.C. I put up a couple of posts today so far, a couple of text posts graced with photographs from my hometown, it seems. Not sure exactly where the first one or second one was taken, but has a nice bench in the picture, and I think about sitting on the bench with people. Empty benches often give me the opportunity to sit and talk to people who are absent in presence. And everyone is absent at the moment out there in Substack world. There are a few people on the sidewalk. It's a good day for walking. And taking in the passing show, who, what, when, and where. Raw journalism. Whole lot about who, what, when, and where. Very little about why or how. Maybe something about how. But why is always an open question. Because tends to cover it. Studio school. It's open. Drawing, painting, printing, and sculpture. Classes for all levels. It's a lot of great things in the neighborhood. And I'm just talking to myself. But I could use a good talking to. It's often been observed. Even if not spoken. Let's see. I could go up. I could go down. I get up, I get down. Old lyrics from Yes. Hey, Deborah Healy has joined. That's good. Always good to have somebody else along for the ride on the passing show. Harrowings Live with Hal Gill, your host. And I'm just making my way, watching a leaf blower. Noisy thing. Excess noise. You get a lot of that. And we're coming up on the Spanish Steps. One of the nicer features of the landscape, because the steepness of the hill we're living on here, they decided, well, instead of making 22nd have this really steep part of its road that just cut it off here, top, and take it down to the bottom. So when I get to the bottom, I go back to the top, but not right now. I'm just going to watch this. It looks like they blocked off part of it. Ooh, a tree is being trimmed or has fallen, as the case may be. I don't think we've had any strong winds. The fountain's going. I love the lion head on the Spanish Steps fountain. Now, this is not like the Spanish Steps in Rome, which are much more extensive. Once I had the opportunity to go up and down on December 2005, as I remember, very near where John Keats died. Way too young. This kind of enforces a silly walk. Well, I guess they're just doing some tree trimming or taking out something that's diseased, perhaps. It's like some bay. I don't know. I don't know my trees too well. I do know that that's magnolia limbs. In addition, looks like, yeah, they're doing some trimming up there. Hope we won't have to take the whole tree down. I think it's a live oak. Yeah. It's danger from fallen branches. Tree surgery. I don't know why. but I hope they don't take the whole thing down. It's a big old tree, that is. It may be in danger of falling, though, crushing something important. Bartlett tree experts are at work. I don't know. He's backing in to the Dominican Republic embassy. One time I got asked directions to that, and I gave directions to the ambassador's house accidentally. Oops. I forget where things are sometimes. But that's the embassy of the Dominican Republic, if you need to know, on this little spur of 22nd Street. 22nd? No, that's 42nd Street. Anyway. What else do I want to talk about? Hey, we got Michael Arturo here. That's good. Deborah Healy, it's a beautiful world to enjoy. I hope it remains protected. Yeah, I hope so too. Stella joined also. Thank you for that. Michael Arturo, I always enjoy your posts. I don't know that I've read everybody else's posts, but, get them in my face. That'll be good. Brazilian Air Force. They got much more information there than they used to. That awning's new, but they have a aeronautical center there. One of their pioneers of aeronautics has a monument on the corner under the flag of Brazil. I always like to see what's happening. This building here, I think, is going to get redone. We have a firebox over here. There's fire call boxes that used to have phones in them. So you could call for emergency services if need be, but they've made a new project out of that, putting art and literature references up and historical references of all sorts. In this case, a young man is being painted in the buff by a young lady. And on the other side, it talks about the arts in Sheridan, Colorado. Writers, sculptors, painters, and collectors made Sheridan, Colorado their home. Best-selling mystery writer Mary Roberts Reinhardt at 2419. Massachusetts. Classicist Edith Hamilton at 2448. Massachusetts. Poet, novelist Eleanor Wiley at 21453. Florida. And Willem de Looper, Dutch-born abstract painter, and Frederick Hart, sculptor of the National Cathedrals Creation Series at 2219 California. Alice Pike Barney conducted an art salon in her Waddy wood-designed home at 2306 Massachusetts, and the modern art collection of Joseph and Olga Hirshhorn, 2241 Bancroft, became the foundation of the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden. 2241 Bancroft is just behind me. And the 2100 block of S Street. Bancroft sort of stretches across there. So we are on R Street at this point, heading down, or we're heading over. I think we're going to head over. Quite a number of different embassies along the way to see. Zambian National new embassy location is 2419 Massachusetts Avenue. Apparently this was used to be Zambia. And here's the Republic of Niger Embassy. The Ambassador de la République. Okay. The consular visa office is located at the back of the embassy's building. Okay. It's a fair way to know that. Kicked a newspaper. Gotta watch my step. Got cicadas chiming in. I don't know if you could hear those that went up. They've fallen off. Mosquito team over there at Cyprus Embassy. And here we have a free library. Spanish Espanol folks and other English speaking ones too, because of you understanding second person storytelling. Oh. Embassy of Guatemala's Chancery. Ordering. Love to see water being sprayed around. It just makes me happy for some reason. As an water is, the thing that's keeping us alive. We are mostly water. And Watching it being sent in different directions reminds me of how everything is interconnected. Everything is flowing, though it may not seem to be. That's at the Embassy of Vietnam. That is, there it is. So this one, not positive. I forget. I forget so much. If you know what that flag is, you probably know. Swaziland, I think maybe. Yeah. Harambe. It could be Kenya too. I don't know. The Egyptian ambassador's residence is close by. I think I'll just sort of follow the circle a little bit. This is totally random. Not really choosing my path, except to choose it. Here we have the American Society of International Law. Bus D90. Bus cruising around the Sheridan Circle. There's Phil Sheridan, Indian killer, among other things. Cavalry officer of the Union troops. Very famous. And Sheridan Colorama is named for this circle dedicated to him, his monument. And over here, we have the Embassy of Ireland, showing solidarity with the Ukraine. And over here, the Greek Embassy, a monument to their national hero. Name I can't pronounce properly, so I'm not going to try. Oh, another fine building, 2217. Not sure what it is. It seems to have a brass plaque on it now. Oh, yeah, that's part of the Embassy of Greece as well. Consular office. So if you need any help from the Greeks, you can go there. 2211. Next door is the Embassy of Paraguay. So, if you just run up the steps there, you're in Paraguay. And you come back down, you're back in the United States again. As I understand it, I have to fact check myself on these things, but that's what I believe to be true. This is the headquarters of the National Society of Daughters of the American Colonists. And I qualify for not being a daughter, but a son of American colonists. I guess I could gender switch and join the daughters. Not planning on doing that. There's the Embassy of Luxembourg. And I think the Turkish ambassadors, no, the Turkish embassy right next to it. One of the Turkish embassies offices. The main Turkish embassy is up the road a piece. I've got Florida Avenue's intersection. I'm looking to see whether I can cross. I can. So I think I'm going to cross here at Massachusetts and Florida, just down from my own home, up the intersection of Florida and Connecticut Avenues. They all come together pretty close to my house anyway. I'm on S Northwest. I'm talking to pass the time, as it were. Yep. Checking my pockets, make sure I got everything I was supposed to have. What I do need to plug up the britches a bit. There are some that a drawstring. Put it in my pouch. I'm made out of nylon material. I like it. It's good. Good for me. This is the Cosmos Club, the outside versus the inside of the driveway. Have a bit of what I think a larkspur. I think that's what that is. Saw a bee. Carpenter bee, probably. Bumble like. And a furry, though, they're smoother, looping around the foliage there. They have the Cosmos Club. The Cosmos Club we're going to read about in a second or two, but it's for people who are highfalutin. Some of my friends are in it. I'm not quite so highfalutin, but sometimes I go to events my friends invite me to, as happened in the past. The Society of Cincinnati, across the way. Society of the Cincinnati, which were the officers who served with Washington in the Revolution. One of whom would have been Edmund Dickinson at the end that died at the Battle of Monmouth. So the Cosmos Club, its first president was Major John Wesley Powell, explorer, naturalist, scientist, and founder, and first president of the Cosmos Club. Private social cultural organization whose members are eminent in their professional fields. Okay. I'd probably not consider it eminent, but there are those who think highly of me, so that's nice. One of them's a psychiatrist who worked with Arlen Specter and traveled the world interviewing different world leaders. I need to get up with Ron, actually, talk to him some point. He's getting older, getting some cardiac issues. Had the last rites read to him. It's tricky business getting older. He's probably going to move from his house in Georgetown eventually. Miss him and the neighborhood, but he'll probably go somewhere in Northern Virginia, see out his twilight years. He has them. This is a monument to Mahatma Gandhi. One person can really transform the world in fundamental ways if they cleave to principles, practice them. There's the Embassy of India behind us, and it's closed today, the Phillips Collection next door. The Embassy of Indonesia is draped in the Indonesian colors. I guess it may be their national day, perhaps. Very beautiful Beaux-Arts building they have there that they've been keeping up for a while. And across the street, Inspire, which is a senior living facility now, was a hotel. It's been converted. We're trying to get a friend of ours from South Dakota in there, ex-Senator Larry Tressler, who was the first Vietnam War veteran to run for president. How about that? He did. He didn't get very far, but, it's a really good man. Did a lot of good work. He was a Rhodes Scholar and could have used that to stay out of the Vietnam War. Instead, he volunteered. Went over there and became one of the people responsible for counting the bodies because, of course, the misinformation that was being put out about how many of the enemy we killed needed to be documented. I'm sure he saw some things that no one should see. He's losing his memory of that, I think, at this point. Got a new advertisement on the bus stop over here, which looks really interesting. I used to work for the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh, obliquely. I was part of the conservation department at the Carnegie Museum of Art, and we took care of the Warhol collection as well. I worked on the database of all the treatments that were done ahead of the opening of the museum in 1993. It looks like we've got Andy Warhol in Iran. High stakes meet hijinks in this roller coaster comedy. That should be cool. Thing to DC. Probably takes center stage. Oh, it's over. May 29th to June 29th. Well, there you go. A bus route map there that went by very quickly. And it's warm and humid out here in DC today, so I don't know how this walking is going to go. But I know that I will have put a few miles on by the end of the day. What else I want to tell you all about? Well, I've got the light with me for at least 8 more seconds. 6, 5, 4. Takes a little while for the red to change over to green because they get yellow first at 0. And then I'm in. Well, we'll talk about the James G. Blaine mansion here. Politician James G. Blaine, 1830 to 1893, lived just a year longer than I did. I have so far. The three-time Republican presidential hopeful who represented Maine in the House and the Senate built this house in 1881 to 1882. Blaine and his family lived there only briefly because the mansion proved too large and expensive to maintain. Blaine leased it to Levi Leiter, a founder of Chicago's Marshall Field's department store, and later sold it to inventor George Westinghouse. It was designed by John Fraser in the Queen Anne style. The mansion was converted to apartments in 1921, with one-story commercial spaces added on P Street. And in 2009, Van Dusen Architects renovated the building for residential, commercial, and retail uses while restoring many original architectural features. So that's cool. Yeah, 2009. That was a year before I moved into the neighborhood, 2010. And I've been a part of the neighborhood since. Peripheral figure, pretty much. Taking in the passing show. A lot of it went out on Facebook Live, and those are getting deleted now because of storage issues. Facebook, I guess. Maybe it did. 3, 2, 1. And on the yellow, making my way across. Did it. Just. Book Lovers Place. Have a used books, $3, 6 for 15. Please pay inside. The Source. I share a moment on Earth. Easterbrook. John Updike. Due considerations. Yeah, I love watching books fly by because I don't need more. Got too many. Ended out a little bit. A tiny little volume by Patti Smith went into the free library outside the embassy in Moldova. So I'm talking and talking, I'm not paying any attention to his ear. Laurie, Maeve's art, word salading, munching, and oh boy, it's hard to see. Ashwina is here. I think you've asked me a couple of questions, Ashwina. If you're still there, I haven't responded because they seem like small talk. I'm not here for small talk. If you've got something substantive to ask or say, please do. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I'm not leaving it alone right now. But when I get those things, these unsolicited DMs, I usually accept them. Look at what they have to say and ask. And if it's like, who are you? Where are you? It's like you're not reading me. I'm posting all the time. So you should know who and where I am without any trouble. This is Washington, D.C., O Street Northwest intersection with 20th Street. Be precise. Happy to answer questions like that. American Center for Polish Culture. We love Polish culture. It's right down here. In fact, it's nice and shady, so I think I'm going to walk down this way as opposed to continuing on 20th Street, getting the shade. The mansion on O Street is worth gandering at anyway. It's got all these bronzes in front of it based on Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Well, the Looking Glass or something. And what else do I want to say about that? Not much. Enjoying the day very much, though. Okay, Ashwina. Ashwina, hello. Yeah, hello again. DI Lifestyles joined. Hi. John Byrne. Todd Hushtetter's joined. Hello, Todd. Yeah, we got some business to do eventually on tools. I am the administrator of the Historic Trades Preservation Special Interest Group, which I started actually when Earl Souls died. If you don't know who Earl Souls was, he was a graduate of Randolph-Macon, as am I, Ashland, Virginia. Back when he was there, I guess it was a men's college only. There's Alice with March hair and the Mad Hatter. Alice looking up.
Texas out.
You're welcome. And, what else we got? Got these lions. Oh, there's the Queen of Hearts, right? Off with her head. So Earl was the director of historic trades after Bill Geiger died. I think he'd been the assistant to Bill. Bill died in his sleep in his 40s. Very sadly, Bill had started the militia program there, which my father was a member, as well as Earl and others. And then lawn bowling was a big part of what they did is also. And, it's great history. In the 1960s, and Bill passed away, Earl took over, and Earl guided the historic trades department for the next umpty-ump years until they made him senior director of the historic area and then eliminated his position. That's cool. That's cool. But he was a great man and led our historic trades preservation probably to its pinnacle during the time that he had Bill Hammis as his special assistant. And my father replaced Bill Hammis and held that position for a few years, during which he founded, my father did with Roy Underhill, of whom many will be aware. They founded the Journal of Historic Trades. I was in Williamsburg yesterday morning and walking through, stopped by the James Anderson house where Roy and my father both had offices at one time upstairs. Roy had a life-size cutout of himself in there. And they finally, security asked them to remove it because it kept startling them. Hopefully, they didn't draw on it. Never know which one of them might have the bullet. That was a running joke. But yeah, can you imagine coming in and finding a bullet hole between the eyes of your life-size cutout? You didn't want to work late there, that's for sure. Anyway, Roy had a show on PBS for many years called The Woodwright Shop. He still, I think, teaches down in North Carolina, not far from where Pete Ross, the former master blacksmith in Williamsburg, teaches or taught. I guess Pete still teaches. And I try to keep these guys connected, right, to the historic trades special interest group. It's really near and dear to my heart because my father was a historian of the inarticulate, as he likes to say, looking at their wills and inventories, their ledger books, and piecing together stories of their lives from that kind of evidence. And that's a big part of why I'm filming. This is primary documentation of who, what, when, and where. Little bits of biography being picked up. And, with AI, we can process that. We can probably find out what this guy and that guy's stories are, or this lady's, or that dog's. All of them. Doesn't have to be a mystery. But, one of the great things is history's mysteries, right? Historian as detective. It's a book somebody else wrote by that title. My father really relished that role, and there's an article from the Orange newspaper, Orange, Virginia, talking about how he enjoyed that role as he was there in the 70s. That was done about 73 or so, maybe about the time he put out his book, Colonial Virginia, which was a fourth grade reader because there was a segment in fourth grade in Virginia where you would read Virginia history. My wife was astonished that both her cousin Terry, who was raised in Northern Virginia, and myself were aware, for instance, the ship upon which Sir Francis Drake was knighted by Queen Elizabeth was the Golden Hind. She was like, "Get out. How do you guys know that?" Well, we learned it in fourth grade. We were required to memorize that kind of stuff. And anyway, historic trades. When I was growing up, Little Tyke, my father did the research for The Gunsmith of Williamsburg, which I think came out in 1968. And that film still shown in conservation programs for decorative arts conservation and such, because so many different skills are documented in the way in which they were practiced in the 18th century. So you see what I'm saying? Dad had helped do the research, the documentary research, turned Wallace Gusler, then the master gunsmith, later the Master Gunsmith too, after his stint as director of conservation, before that curator of furniture, largely because of the research that he did with Dad on Virginia furniture, identifying it and then selling it back to the foundation once he had it. They stopped him from doing that by making him a curator. Anyway, I digress. That film, The Gunsmith in Williamsburg, is still available on YouTube. Just look it up. And it's fascinating. And yeah, so that's the kind of contribution that my late father made to the overall thing. And Earl Scholes, of course, director. I guess Bill Geiger was still alive then, but Earl was the assistant. And, goes on and on. I'll have to watch it again and see the credits. Dad did the silversmith research as well. Phil Thorpe and Bill DiMatteo, now both on the other side of the veil. They were instrumental, but we're going to keep those guys alive, through advocating, through making available those films on the Historic Trades Special Interest Group, which shows the application of tools to the materials in such a way as to create products. Something that was also documented in Sprengel's Handwerke und Künste und Tabellen, or Trades and Arts, as I translate that title. Trades and Arts. Looks like I can get across this way, up to that corner of the park. I can get extra steps in. I don't mind that I'm doubling back. And then I'll cross over and get in the shade of the day. Head on down towards our Vietnam War Memorial. That's my ultimate destination as I walk and talk. I think I should go over there, actually. I think, is that 21st? That is 21st. I'm going to go over to 21st Street. Keep on walking. I think I can cut across here. Tip-a-tip, tip-a-tip. All right. So anyway, that's what it sparked my memory when I saw our friend who joined, will be on Harrowings Live at some point in the future, because he's got a group of tool collectors. And I really dig that, My great-grandfather ran a hardware store in Orange. My grandfather ran Gill Electrical Company, or Electric Company. That's Gill Electric Company. And yeah, so I try to keep those things in my heart and remember them. Like, I went back to Williamsburg recently. I used to work in the gunsmith shop briefly as an interpreter. I transferred out of my apprenticeship at the foundry in order to get out of the tyranny of the master. God loving, great lawn bowler, Sven Danberg. And anyway, I dodged him. I managed to negotiate my transfer with the good offices of some of his colleagues who understood my value, but they also understood, how it'd lose me and lose a lot if I decided to follow through on my plans to leave if I couldn't get out from under. I was doing that translation work on Handwerke und Künste und Tabellen that I started talking about. I won a fellowship through the Warren G. Hobby Charitable Trust that provided historic trades fellowships. It allowed us to get out of the shop and do, primary research on documents that we managed to get our hands on. I had skills in the German language more or less by accident because I majored in German at Randolph Macon College, where Earl had also matriculated. And, well, when I got that fellowship, it was for 6 months of work. But Dan didn't want me to take 6 months out of the shop. He was going to have me break it down. I was kind of not down with that. My wife had just finished costuming the gunsmiths. They were doing very highly authentic costuming then. And Heather made the costumes for the guys who worked there and realized they're pretty good guys. They didn't want to have this other guy from the silversmith shop, one of their interpreters, transferred to them, as the silversmiths had plotted to do, because they couldn't take him anymore. He was kind of like a broken record. He had memorized his script and just repeated it on demand. And that's not really great interpretation, you get down to it. But poor guy. I mean, I think he was doing the best he could with what he had. But I realized, hey, the gunsmiths don't want Roger, and this is basically a way of getting rid of Roger, which is kind of cool. And I could go there, and would want me. I've got a lot of value to offer. I've got my foundry skills. You wouldn't lose them. Of course, I've got my historical knowledge, partially genetic. And, I'd be a better asset and worth retaining. So, given that I've run into this impasse with the master of my shop, I'd like to transfer. And so I did, without telling him. In fact, when I went out of there, nobody knew I'd be rolling into the gunsmith shop on my way back. And a young lady, a good friend, happened to have attended my father's funeral too, which was really nice. Jan, she got an opportunity to work in the foundry, in my place, until I didn't come back and Roger came in for the next 20 plus years. Roger finally was laid off, I think, 2014 or so, but he had about 20 years there, 1994 on, or 1990, really. Because it was 90 when I went over to the gunsmiths. I was out of there in about 5 months because I applied to be a conservation technician, and the former master gunsmith was then director of conservation. And on my own merit, made it very clear, it's not nepotism. I got a job as a conservation tech, and I held that for about 3 years, going out in the historic area about 6 a.m., doing my rounds, checking on the condition of the antiques, getting into the labs, being an assistant to first the firearms and metals conservator, David Hardy. David had a storied career there as somebody who researched bloomery work, actually getting iron from bog ore, making a chisel from that, and learning all the metallurgy involved, in addition to using 18th century techniques to accomplish the feat, which was done in Jamestown and other places. I think it's still going on. Anyway, David's out in LA last I checked. David Harvey Productions. But Dave was the conservator of firearms and metals, and we worked on quite a number of projects together. A wall gun, ball rifle from Rappahannock Forges. Worked on the coffin plate from Lord Botetourt's coffin that was stolen and recovered in Rome, New York, at a jewelry shop. And was one of the few pieces we can document having been made at James Getty's shop, thanks to the research done on the account books there. I think my father may have done some of that, but it may have been Mary Stevenson, some of the other people who had worked in research. In any case, what's fascinating to me about that is that Waddell, whose first name escapes me, was an engraver, brother-in-law, I believe, of James Getty Jr., who built that house that stands there now. Actually, he may not have built the house. It had been built by his father. I have to double check that. I can't remember. James Getty Sr. was a gunsmith and founder who left that business to his oldest sons, William and David. And James was apprenticed to a silversmith and took that trade up. His brother-in-law, as I said, was an engraver who engraved that coffin plate on Lord Botetourt's coffin. 1770, Lord Botetourt passed away, giving way to Lord Dunmore, who was run off during the Revolution, placed first by Patrick Henry, then by Thomas Jefferson as governors of Virginia. All right, I am on 21st Street, heading down towards the Vietnam War Memorial. Then we'll loop back up home and hopefully get back in time to pick up my dear wife from work by 4 o'clock. I don't think that should be much problem, provided I keep my feet under me. Okay, what else do I want to tell you about history? I don't know. There's the Marquis de Lafayette Hall over across the way for George Washington University. George Washington University campus store. And George Washington University's founding plate there in 1821, I believe. It's when it was established. Means it's 204 years old. Onward. So yeah, I got a lot of history in my head. And I lived a lot of history as well. I was there in 1976. We had our bicentennial. We're coming up on 250 years next year, 2026. It'll be 50 years after I was performing with the Fife and Drum Corps in Colonial Williamsburg. As a corporal, by 77, I made sergeant, and I was made an instructor. And held on to that from 77, 78 through till, oh gosh. When did that wrap up? 1981, September? When I was
63.
one of my last performances, it was for the Lord Mayor of London. So I've got some good pictures of myself back then. My trademark scowl. When I'm standing at attention or at parade rest, I'm apt to scowl, particularly if the sun's in my eyes. And it may have been. We were standing in front of the the courthouse of 1770, where an address was being made by the then Lord Mayor of London, 1981, September that year. And then I went off to Randolph-Macon, did my skills in German, and came back to the foundation. One thing led to another. I left after being a conservation tech. And I went back for my degrees in German, master's degree, and I was aiming to get a PhD, but didn't end up doing that. Didn't even try. I continued as adjunct faculty in the wake of my earning the master's degree from Pitt. Worked at the Carnegie Museum of Art again in conservation for a few years before moving to Denmark, working for a small web software company whose fortunes didn't do that well, though their online help, built by me and John Swimer, was an award-winning solution, single source, so you do the print from the same source as the online help, and that ended up giving us an award of merit in the European Technical Publication Competition of 2002. But by that time, I was back in the States working for the Ordnance Information System, tech writing team there doing requirements at the Naval Weapons Station in Yorktown, primarily, traveling out to Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, Bloomington, Indiana, and gathering the requirements necessary to blend all the systems that tracked those things that blew up in the Navy that weren't nuclear. Now I'm passing the George Washington University Textile Museum. The Textile Museum used to be, years ago, not many years ago, in a double mansion on S Street. Now belongs to guess who? Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post and is the founder of Amazon, and recently got married in Florence, Venice. I said Florence. Didn't want to give Florence that distinction. Quigley's Pharmacy is now the home of Tonic. Cures what ails you. I did a happy hour there with RCM Solutions years ago. We were serving the General Service Administration on a contract to support the integrated award environment. If you use sam.gov, that was work that we oversaw the governance of. And I got hired on with them in the wake of having a gig with HUD, Housing and Urban Development, that didn't last very long or do very well. It's a company called 22nd Century Solutions. I forget. Anyway, it's been one of those after another, many years now. But now I'm just executive director of the Harold B. Gill Foundation, which seeks to collect, protect, preserve, and promulgate the creative works of Harold B. Gills. I'm one of them. My father was one. My grandfather was one. I mentioned briefly that my great-grandfather ran a hardware store on Main Street in Orange, Virginia. Was a major pillar of that community from the time he moved there from Amherst County, Virginia. Not sure exactly what year that happened, but he didn't earn much in his tobacco crop and decided to seek other climes and ended up buying this hardware store that was on its last legs in Orange and making a go of it. Till he passed in 1961, it was in the hands by then of Basil and Curtis. Curtis passed away shortly thereafter. Basil, I guess, went on running it along with his or his brother's descendants until 1991, if I remember correctly. When it finally went out of business, Billy Gill shut it down. His daughter Elena still has the cabin built by Willie, Uncle William Stanhope Gill, up on Alhambra Road in the George Washington National Forest.
Something else, like an excellent
If you happen to go up there, pass a compound of 3 cabins, one built by the hardware store under my great-grandfather, Charles Clinton Gill, now owned by Kurt Gill, I expect, was owned by my father's first cousin, Charlie. And then Charlie's still around, but I understand that he's not doing as well and is in a senior living facility, like my mother. And, as our generation gets on up there, we try to take the best care of them we can. There's a Methodist home up in Orange, I guess that may be where Charlie might be. My Aunt Rachel was there at the end of her life. She made it to 91 like my father. So I think that's kind of our ordinary expiration date. That means I've got another 29 years or so, 28 and a half, something like that. And if I get to my father's age at his expiration, and I might just do it. I've quit smoking a lot earlier than he did. I might have better genetics for it. I don't know. My mother seems to have pretty good genetics. Her sister's doing quite well at 88. And my mother's 86. Her brother died of cancer, probably due to miss by the prostate cancer surgeons who attempted to save him from its effects. We don't know. But Ronnie left us at 76, youngest to leave of the children of Loomis Elwood and Mildred May Hassel. Now, Loomis had some heart defects and might have inherited something of that. I've got an aneurysm at this point in my ascending aorta. I have to watch it. But I'm doing what I can to keep my blood pressure low, and usually it's pretty much spot on. Not too good with my diet, though, so I got to watch that. Tried to do a little better today with fruit and almond toast. My breakfast over at Emissary, Paragimo, something like that. Pergamino, maybe. I don't know. Not sure. I think this is legal. And a maneuver by the State Department, if I'm not mistaken. You never know, you might see. Just keep on walking. Yeah, on that. White side. United States Diplomacy Center. Definitely need to have diplomacy. American flag flying. Walking pretty far outside of the boundary here. I smile at everybody. Got a t-shirt on that reads King Crimson 2021 tour shirt, and on the back, the various dates that they played in 2021, ending in the Washington, D.C. anthem down on the wharf. Those are the days. Really warm out here today. No thoroughfare, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Got to use the C Street ramp. Oh. What else did I want to talk about today? If I pass the State Department, I'm sure I'm being monitored. And then be a fool not to monitor every communication that goes around. Certainly had an enjoyable morning. As I mentioned, I was at the Paragamo Emissarial Coffee Shop on 20th Street Northwest, between R and S Streets, very close to my home at 2103 S Street. Looking forward to getting down to the mall and away from all this security. I'll document the scene. State Department back behind me. Marco Rubio, a former Florida senator, is currently the Secretary of State. Not sure how I feel about that, but it's up to a whole lot of public servants to keep the ball rolling. We don't have as many as we used to. They're spending a lot of money rehabbing this federal building across the way. I forget what it is. Department of something or other. Federal Reserve, maybe? I don't know. I think over here is the Organization of American States, if I'm not mistaken. I might be. Because I can't pull everything all the time. It's likely that's the Organization of American States. Whew. And it's likely, too, that I've probably talked myself blue walking down here and having some good interactions with other people. I sent out a gratitude list to 166 addresses, just individual phone numbers, texted. And, I put a link to the article I wrote this morning, titled, which I forget already. And I'm sure I could dig it up. But also put a link to Suzanne Vega's Left of Center, which is kind of my motif for everybody anymore. If you want me, you can find me left of center. Off of the grid. Well, actually, I'm on the grid. Very much on the grid. But I'm also findable because you can see where I am. Hopefully you don't call in a drone strike at 21st and Constitution Northwest on the northeast corner. We're about to get to the sad time with the Vietnam War Memorial. So unnecessary. Lost our first bass drummer, the Floyd Williamsburg Fife and Drum there, Talmadge H. Alphen Jr. think it was August 28th or 23rd, 1968. August 23rd, I want to say. It's Rise Attack. It's a radio man. I think he might have been an Army Ranger or a Green Beret.
No.
And he was killed. No chance. Probably hit in his sleep. The ambush of his unit. Let's take a look. He was a staff sergeant. I know that much. So he had gone beyond the basic training to serve in Vietnam, as so many of his generation did. Folks at the book. So I don't know if I'll be able to look up the specific information about the name or not. I'll just let them look. I know where to find it. I just don't know the specific date. I think it's August 23rd, 1968. I was 5. A little over 5 years old, coming up on 6, and February 4th of 69. Woodstock Festival would happen that summer, but Talmadge wouldn't be able to go because he wouldn't come home from Vietnam alive, as so many didn't. It's really hot. Really hot. We are direct sun as we get down beyond this little patch of shade. Look at all the names. All these people lost because of the hubris, thinking that forcing a government onto South Vietnam that people might not have wanted is a good idea. See if we can get to peace the coming week in the Ukraine and Gaza, around the world, because there's so much suffering out there, so much of it unnecessary. If we would just work with each other, show each other consideration and kindness. Meta, come at it from a sense of loving kindness. Coming up, 37, I believe. 37.
Yeah.
I may be wrong about which one it is. It's 42. I can usually find it.
Yeah, all grandpas. Right.
He may not did make it the one seat, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right by the bracket, I just said it's
6, 47. There. 47, West 47. Talmadge Alphen. Talmadge Horton Alphen Jr. And his record will be up here in one of the books I can see open right now. As I mentioned, he was the first bass drum of the Colonial Williamsburg Fife Drum Corps. First one in our history, he probably was drumming alongside my father, who was in the militia during that time. I don't know if they knew each other at all, but there's kids, They got out there and they learned our history.
What's the other stuff?
They could talk it pretty well. They go out and do everything they could to be a part of the solution for our country. Yeah, Chelsea. There he is. Yeah. 23rd of August, 68, as I thought. I think I'll probably remember it this time, but I always think that every time I see it, I block it out somehow. That's August 23rd, 68. Should be easier to remember now. This is a monument to all those who were lost after the war, to hidden wounds.
Он так, он совет. Я так помню, не питаю, только с ней это не плохо, это не там процедура, там вот, нет? Они давно это. Я буду все что факс, стабильными камнями культурными бабы.
I'm getting a Russian interpretation of the historical monument. That was nice to hear. I had a lot of friends when I was in Pittsburgh studying German, as I mentioned earlier, who were in the Slavic department. I went up there on the 14th floor to revisit the location, only to find the communication department has taken it over. I know that they've ended the graduate program, MA and PhD programs at the University of Pittsburgh for German. I don't know if they ended it for Slavic studies or not, but it's kind of sad. Sad to hear it. We're coming up on Lincoln Memorial. They got a long ramp now. It goes zigzagging up to it. They were going to open a new set of exhibits in 2026, the 250th anniversary of our country. I think this was put up in the centenary of Lincoln's birth, 1909. Keep on walking. Taking in the passing show. What, when, and where? It's the longest shot of them all. I was up there. They shot a scene with Forrest Gump giving his lecture. I was up there that Martin Luther King gave his address in 1963, August of that year. Bob Dylan, Joan Baez were here. Q Romney was here. Q's now wavy gravy, by the way. Nobody's fool. This guy doing a selfie stick filming of the passing show. Another jet going into National. Not sure which airline that was. I wasn't really paying attention. Try to hit the shade. Keep on walking. We're doing on power. 55, that's not bad. Lost 5100 has joined us. See? No idea who you are, but I think that's funny. I like that. I like that you're a paid subscriber too. I could use more. At 14 last I counted. Not that anyone's counting. Well over 500 free subscribers. That's good. Ripple effects, folks. Ripple effects. Kindness, consideration, compassion, peace. Do no harm. First, do no harm. Then call things what they are. Call things by their proper names. Much of it's about indifference.
Well, boy, she got the ice baby. Yeah.
You hear a lot of different languages as we walk along. Stroll and sing. Not doing much singing at the moment, but tomorrow, around this time, 12:37, will be again with Sunny Triple.
Oh, sorry.
It's quite all right. Didn't want to get in your shot. If I
What did you want? Oh,
That's a lovely set of people. Many different people from many different lands come here, seeking something of our history and the mystery of how in the heck we got to the point we're at now. Well, a lot of it we did by violence, being more violent than anybody else. Witnessed the situation a few days ago, 80 years ago, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which 80 years ago were recovering from horrific atomic bomb strikes that were like firecrackers compared to what we have in our arsenal today. What insanity is that? How much money is spent maintaining it? Think about it. Why do we allow that collectively? Because we're all responsible. I'm responsible. You're responsible. We're all responsible. I mean, I used to, when I was a kid, study these aircraft. We used to move each other around. A lot of my friends have ended up being airline pilots after serving in the military in particular. But I was also studying the weapons of war and sort of having a lust for how much destruction could be done by our weaponry. And that was really madness. Certainly exercised in my generation did in 1991.
yeah.
I had not joined the military myself out of college, but a lot of my friends had. Class of 81. One of them was flying off the Midway, an FA-18 Hornets. Went on to be the brother-in-law of Bruce Hornsby. Crazy. Then was another friend of mine in the Marines, my 5th section leader. It's flying Harriers for the Marines. Another one, the bass drum section leader, was commanding a howitzer team and the Kuwaiti oil fires, among other places. Chronic pneumonia was his lot. Child grandfather of several, I think. I haven't really kept track. And that's strange, right? I probably should keep track of, I could reach out, but I don't. Maybe because I don't want to bug him, but know he's busy. Last I heard, he had a 2-masted schooner he was skipper of. I don't know if he's still skippering that around the bay, but he very well might be. Good man. In a lot of ways, we had a lot of fun as children, growing up in Williamsburg, Virginia, and Birchwood, and then in Kings Mill on the James. His family moved right down the street from us on the same street, 100 Underwood Road we were at. I forget his number. Maybe it was 121. Maybe. Don't remember. Even on Chestnut Drive when I was growing up, a split level house is still there, pretty ornate. Actually, it's blocked out on Google Maps from Street View. That's okay. You know what else is okay? Watching the water being poured out on the green. Can be used for sports. Probably later this evening. Hundreds of gallons of water. Some of it escaping up into the atmosphere. join the clouds. Lovely day. We're so lucky that things aren't blowing up around us. I shouldn't speak too soon, though. I don't know. Just now, things seem to me. It seems to me peace should be our lot. It should have been after World War II. Should have been able to solve all of our problems without warfare, but it wasn't the case. We went right into it with the Korean War and Vietnam War. And then with the interventions around the world. We weren't intervening. We're having issues like the situation with the Shah of Iran getting medical treatment over here and escaping, quote, justice, quote, out of the hands of the revolution in Iran. I almost went to war with them again over the exchange of ordnance that happened to try to knock out their capacity to have a nuclear weapon. Something we have in spades, the Russians, the French, presumably, and the Israelis. It goes on and on. Pakistanis definitely have the technology. Indians, British, us, the Canadians. Presumably, now the Canadians deal with it, but should look it up. I should know these things. We should all know these things, and we should all do something about the insanity of it all. 80 years, 80 years in the rearview mirror. 90 years in the rearview mirror. We've got a solution to one of great scourges of humanity, alcoholism. How much attention are we paying to that? A little more. Not like we were with nicotine. It's a gradual awakening. And a lot of the world's still smoking itself to death. Thanks to our cultivation of Virginia's primary cash crop, the 18th century. Tobacco. Tobacco built this country. We shouldn't forget that either. Bones upon which we rest. Tobacco and slavery to actually help cultivate it. Mark of pain is upon us. As the humanity to man on display. People trying to force their wills on others. A will to power. To think about. Let me keep on walking. Can hear so many different languages around us. I can't translate them, but it's a regular Tower of Babel. We're doing on time here. Power. 44%. I'm glad. I'm enjoying filming this little rove around the Vietnam War, World War Memorial. Tribute to each state and the different theaters and our allies. And all those who served and lost their lives. Including my grandfather and my great uncles. They all came home. Different levels of injury. Michael Gray in particular suffered. I dreamed about Gray yesterday, and how strange it was not to be better acquainted I was with him. He lived next door to my grandfather his whole life, and he outlived my grandfather by a good bit. Gray, Forrest, Basil. Basil did not outlive my grandfather, come to think of it. Gray, Forrest, those two. CC had passed away just before my grandfather. He was the youngest. Gray was next youngest, and then my father, and then Forrest was the older of the surviving brothers. There's also Curtis and Basil, who'd already passed away. But their widows are able to see my father's Amherst property. Doris and Yvonne. I don't know, Mary Forrest get there too? I don't remember. Mary Gray, I don't think dead. Mary Gray predeceased her husband. He wasn't long behind my grandfather.
17th Street. Walk sign is on.
But it's funny, I would have dreamed of Gray last night. Because I knew I'd be talking about him today. So I passed the World War II memorial, and I remember Gray served at Anzio. And all that entailed. Shared a foxhole with a dead German soldier for a while. That'll do a job on your mentality, I tell you what. Is what it is. We are what we are. I'm heading around onto Independence Avenue eventually, I think. Via this little spur coming off of the avenue. Beautiful trees. Grace this area. The Jefferson Memorial across the way, which has recently been cleaned. Had scaffolding all over the roof for a long time. Jefferson. The ideals he enshrined. Picked up in conversation around the table with Governor Francis Frontier, Dr. Small, the College of William and Mary, and Dr. With, professor of law, under whom he studied. He particularly picked up ideas of John Locke, who, through his two treatises on government, and his treatise about some problems facing the colony of Virginia and a few suggestions for their remedy, led to the foundation of Williamsburg, Virginia, my hometown. Against the will of Governor Andros, who was unseated and replaced by Governor Francis Nicholson, for whom the framing streets, Francis and Nicholson, are named on either side of the Duke of Gloucester Street, named for the Duke of Gloucester, Queen Anne's surviving son, who didn't actually survive to succeed her, which led in turn to the Hanoverian dynasty of George the First, Second, and then Third. And the third was not his own best friend when it came to administering the colonies. And trying to force his will. Found out how well that works. Forcing anyone's will on the American people can be really traumatic for those attempting to do so. As our Democratic Party apparently is now finding out, as they attempted to find a good, strong candidate to oppose a fellow who shouldn't have been that hard to oppose. Apparently was. And I don't know what to think of it. This Catawba tree is surviving it. Barely. Catawba's line, the governor's palace, green as well. I was filming them yesterday. I could tell the seen better days for sure. There's the Washington Monument, footing having gone up part way, being completed penny at a time until it was summited, I think in 1883. A small piece of aluminum, which was very precious metal then. Fine aluminum. It says something, the glory of God, or something like that. God's praises. There we go. View of the Jefferson Memorial. Jefferson standing underneath the dome. Haven't torn that one down yet, but there has been thought of it. Black walnut tree poisons the ground beneath it. I love black walnuts. So.
Nếu mà có sự Việt Nam một có ý mà phải phạm tiền.
I understand a little bit of that. Being, as it is, former boyfriend of a Sardinian. Still a good friend to Sardinians. Which I appreciate. We actually have hosted my ex Pittsburgh days, Philadelphia days. She was a professor at Drexel. She'd come down and talk at Georgetown, and we'd give her accommodation. Spent a lot of happy hours together. Till I made the mistake of not appreciating some medical advice she gave me, not being qualified. Just missed it and was rude. Shouldn't be rude to your friends if you can avoid it. They're no longer your friends pretty quickly thereafter. I still am friends with her sister, even though we don't really have a common language. I certainly enjoyed her hospitality. 1994. Stitch it back together. 95. I came and spent about a week. It's her guest. I was really, really pleased with that time together. I hope that I return the favor.
It's a little bit expensive, but it's okay.
It's nice to look back into memory. As one walks, tries to make one's way from dawn to dusk and back again, all heading one direction. Had a nice day yesterday with Mom. She's 86. Can't remember just about anything. I don't think she remembered the previous Thursday. My brother-in-law told me that she was having a good time playing bingo with her friends. I liked hearing that. She'd forgotten I was coming to visit her, even though I'd reminded her by phone 24 hours before. Go ahead and mark it down on your calendar. And I've had her mark it down on September 13th as well. Got to negotiate that with my wife. Make sure that's okay. I might have to go down solo. But I'd like to take my wife with me. Make it a little mini vacation of it. She likes shopping there.
You know, no.
That's always good. Let her do what she likes to do. Better than not having her do what she doesn't want to do. She's so good. She's so helpful to me. I'm so lucky. I hope everybody feels lucky about your chosen partners in life. It's hard to make it on your own. Sometimes you can't. I'm going to get the walk sign now. I'm wrong about that. Why is it coming up? Now. It's because of the turning traffic. You get to turn first. Now we can walk. I am going to try to head which way? The shadiest way. That's try for. So if anybody's been talking to me on this, I haven't really been paying attention. For one thing, it's hard to in the bright sunlight streaming down on Washington, D.C. so thickly at the moment. It's part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture there, Forest Service, and the main buildings of the Department of Agriculture. My father always used to observe that there were more members of the Department of Agriculture than there were actual farmers in America, which is probably still true. It's good to have shade. It's kind of weather. Almost up to 14th Street. I think it was time to bear off towards Jefferson Street. We'll run down on power. Got a battery in my pocket. Plug it in. On power. Keep on filming. Cinema Verite. Little who, what, when, and where. With your host, Hal Gill. That's me. If you've just joined us, thanks for that. Getting a little bit of history as it happens. Here in Washington, D.C. 14th Street Northwest, coming up on Jefferson Street. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not in Northwest anymore. We've crossed the line. So we're in Southwest. And Jefferson Street, or Jefferson Drive Southwest is coming up by the cross from us. I get there, we'll be up. I'll be able to cross. Looks like yes, but I don't want to. So I'll cross here on 14th Street. Trying to get my balance. Heading up towards the Freer Gallery. Art. I'll probably cut this broadcast because I'm going to look for a facility. Restroom.
So,
I don't know how much those guys make on the corner for the hot dogs and things that they provide, but hopefully a good bit. We're passing by a pond cypress. Grew up around those down in Lake Powell, Virginia, not far from Lake Lorraine 1, which was the first lake. Lake Lorraine 2, second lake. Lake Powell's dam burst some time ago. I don't think it was ever rebuilt. It was kind of like just a trickle of swamp, but I guess it's got some swamp cypress still standing. U.S. Department of Agriculture coming up on the side here. Across the way, the Smithsonian Museum of American History. On the second floor up there is Stanley, which is a Volkswagen Touareg that drove itself across the desert in DARPA Challenge in 2006, if I remember correctly, led by a team led by Sebastian Thrun, the Audacity as well. It's nice to have been a character in the periphery of all of his trajectory. I remember talking with him and others from the German department, Gabby Rile, from the Gabby Bauer, Tillman Heckel. So now Stuttgart, if I'm not mistaken, are there around. They and me and Sebastian and Petra, his then wife, we talk about redoing how the university is done. And he went and did it. Took his statistics course, put it online, made it free. Massively online open course. And statistics. 147 of his best students were not at Stanford, which is where he was teaching at the time. When I knew him, he was at Carnegie Mellon University heading up the robotics lab there. Did some translations of articles about his work in Bonn. Smart Guy from Bonn was the title of one of them. And he was exceptionally smart. Colleague Vastra Teller, who went on to head up Google X around the time that Sebastian did Google Maps, Google Earth, which if you use it as a product of his brain, realizing it could be done, then doing what was necessary to realize it, using the resources at his disposal. Aren't we lucky? Are we lucky for these people who see what can be done and do it? And I certainly have ideas together. I was a part of that crowd. I was just a peripheral figure. I may have actually said it out loud, particularly the part about the complaining that was going on amongst my fellow teaching assistants about how we needed to be better at what we did and not have it be such a exclusive thing. And we opened it up. And it's not exclusive any longer. Anyone can learn anything about anything, anywhere, anytime, practically. And we'd be well advised to do it. Because our machines are doing it now. Think about that. And with that, I'll probably be wrapping up the passing show pretty soon. Because I'm almost to the Freer, which was my destination ultimately. I didn't know it when I set out, as I talked about at the very beginning of this broadcast. So it goes. Curiosity welcomed. And that's true of the passing show as well. Curiosity is welcomed here on Harrowings, live with Hal Gill, your host. Ask me questions. Put them in your comments. And make those comments cogent. So I won't just block you and report you for spamming me. Because I might. If I get the sense that I'm being spammed, that's exactly what I'll do. Because nobody needs that. And hopefully nobody feels that they're being spammed by me. I filming the passing show. Everybody is forced to listen. They have arrived.